A 17-year-old Davy Jones has just founded the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Long-Haired Men.
David Bowie at 17, never the chameleon, ever the standout, apart, otherworldly.
We've had comments like "darling" and "can I carry a handbag?"
This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade.
1969 and the breakthrough album Space Oddity. Major Tom in a world slightly apart, yet speaking to ours. 3 years later and building success with the classics Life on Mars from the album Hunky Dory, along with Changes. Despite saying that, success was gradual and evolving. Global superstardom had to wait for this. The rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars later that year, unleashing the Ziggy Persona, Rockstar and Alien.
Now Ziggy play guitar, jamming good with weird.
I've always found that I collect. I'm a collector. And I've always just seemed to collect personalities, ideas. I have a hodgepodge philosophy, which really is very minimal.
The Ziggy Persona was to assure massive successive album sales. All the time, Bowie frenetically busy on many different dimensions, producing albums during this period for longtime friends Lou Reed and Iggy Pop.
Well, here comes Johnny, yeah, again. They got the liquor and drugs and the flesh machine.
In a sprinkling of Ziggy Stardust, Bowie simply gave the song All the Young Dudes to Mott the Hoople, setting them up for chart success. The Bowie influence by now everywhere, and not just musically. Could Gene Simmons and Kiss really have looked like this without David Bowie first redefining manhood and makeup? Yet, Bowie suddenly ended Ziggy live on stage in London.
Not only is it the last show of the tour, but it's the last show that we'll ever do.
He'd say later that dropping Ziggy and all the other alter egos was actually a bit of a relief.
On this tour has been somewhat of an eye-opener because I've really enjoyed just performing songs and not having the commitment of having to be a character, which has made it less of a strain than it normally is.
The mid-70s, young Americans and another total change into soul this time. Further changes again with the thin white Duke persona coming to the fore, closely associated with the next album Station to Station. Ever restless, Bowie then moved to Berlin for a trilogy of albums, Low, Heroes and Lodger, collaborating with Brian Eno. Any complexity no doubt eased because by now Bowie reckoned he was doing it all without drugs.
As I wrote things like Low, Heroes, Lodger, Scary Monsters, all straight.
By the way.
Without drugs. Pretty much without drugs.
Nothing you have seen or heard about David Bowie will prepare you for the...
And all the while his film career had been unfolding in roles like The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Performance on stage, I think I've decided really to cut it down for once every 2 years because I find it boring. After the first 10 shows, it starts to become repetitious every night, the same thing.
So will there be more acting and more films?
Yes, there will. I'm heading towards directing.
I could escape this feeling with my China girl.
Bored or not with touring, he could not forsake the studio. Let's Dance, followed with hits like China Girl, his most mainstream success. Not that Bowie by this time was much bothered about mainstream. There were things better forgotten in a musical career spanning 6 decades, from the early novelty single The Laughing Gnome through to the Tin Machine 4-piece of the late 80s. He himself said the Bowie Jagger cover of Dancing in the Street for Live Aid might be best left behind. But such projects mere sideshows, of course. Because Bowie explored to the last, from the Next Day album appearing suddenly after a decade, to last week's Black Star, released, deliberately it now seems, just in time.
Look up here, I'm in heaven. I've got scars that can't be seen.
Elegiac in mood, he knew he was dying, adorned with references to yet another, but this time final, transformation. London tonight, his hometown, lights up in tribute, as do stars from around the world. Major Tom, Ziggy the Thin White Duke, all of them heroes, living on for a new generation of fans. David Bowie has indeed let the children boogie.